Expectations for Joey Aguilar game one. Let's talk about the quarterback.
4 touchdowns and a rushing score.
Rob said that, overall expects Joey Aguilar to be serviceable at worst. And I know he was talking about big picture wise for the entire season. But Rob, game one, expectations for Tennessee's new quarterback, what are they?
Man, I can't imagine that he's not going to be, I wouldn't say nervous, but I mean jacked up. Just like, this is going to be the biggest stage that, at least where he's been, the home team that he's played on. I'll be surprised if he's not battling, just not nervous, but just if he's not just so hype early. My biggest thing with him is going to be ball security. I want to see if he takes care of it. I mean, and by that does he hold off on forcing it in there? And man, you hear Halsley and Heupel talk, man. I think it's a fine line for a quarterback because they want these guys to be aggressive. I mean, they lean probably more towards that angle than most coaches. So that to me is going to be my biggest thing that I'm worried about. Not does he err on the side of caution, because I don't think that's in his nature at all. And just how careful with it? How careful is he with it? How aggressive is he? That's my baseline for what I want to see.
Listen, Hubbard, if they come out and they throw a deep ball and he completes it early, the Tennessee side is going to lose their minds.
It's and again, sometimes those are the easiest throws. I don't think they'll get that matchup, but I go back to the 2000 season. Tennessee had played and lost that overtime game at LSU, and A.J. Suggs had thrown it 60-something times in that game, and it was dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk, and then they make a quarterback switch a couple of weeks later, and it's Casey Clausen, and he comes out on play one. He may have even checked to it because that's sort of his mentality, but they went up top on play one, and that place in Inland Stadium went like, yeah, okay, now this is what we're supposed to do here. So you're exactly right. You hit one of those early. This fan base will absolutely lose their mind, because you go back and watch last year, and I think there were more of those plays available to Tennessee than we recall. You and it's kind of human nature. You recall the game-changing plays or the significant plays of note. You don't dwell and kind of put and compartmentalize the negatives or the plays that were near misses. They had a bunch of misses vertically. There were more guys open vertically than I want to give them credit for last year. They just weren't very good throwing the deep ball. They just weren't very good vertically. They didn't catch enough of them. They dropped too many. They overthrew them. They just did not execute that play very well. And I'm not saying they should have scored 20 more touchdowns, Eric, but there were 6 to 10 of those that you could have easily said in some key games that, hey, you hit half of those, you feel a lot better about kind of the direction of where that passing game was going last year versus what it turned out to be.
Yeah, again, that 2-game stretch, Florida and Alabama, Nico, receivers, just the whole operation, it was so off for that 2-week span specifically because there was so much left on the table, so much. And obviously you're trying not to leave anything on the table. You're going to leave some on the table. That's just, nobody's ever perfect, but you want to be able to, hit on some more of those this year. And I think Joey, historically, if you go look at his numbers, Pro Football Focus, he's thrown a deep ball pretty well. Is that something Tennessee wants to tap into here? Is that something Tennessee wants to do, putting him on the run, but, rolling out? I don't know. We'll have to see. Again, all these questions, that's what makes week one really, really exciting. Volquest put out a predicted 2 deep on Monday. And again, Tennessee didn't release its 2 deep that was going to have 27 oars on it Monday. I guess that'll be available on game day. Brent Austin, when putting that together, anything comes as a surprise. It maybe not like, oh, this guy's going to be a starter, or oh, this guy's going to be the 2 deep, but just overall, like, man, this guy's come a long way. Like, he's going to really help this team this year. And yes, I know we've talked about Jesse Perry before, but like some of those other ones, like this guy, I didn't necessarily see it, but he's going to play a big role for Tennessee.
Nothing for me that just was like surprising, but at the same time, I think for just the common fan, they're trying to, figure out, who some of these players are because they didn't play a big role last year or they're total newcomers this year. And so when you got fans that, aren't, just ingrained at looking at the depth chart, at looking at each and every player on the team, it's a learning process. So you're going to learn about this team a lot, over the next few weeks as you figure out who is who and kind of what their role is on this 2025 football team.
I thought the first team was pretty easy to put together. I thought it was pretty easily set once the quarterback race was over. I didn't that they're, just kind of guessing at it and figuring it wasn't really hard. I mean, I think all of us agree that given what he's gone through, it's just nearly impossible to see Boo Carter be a starter game one. Not that he's not going to play or be available, but they just weren't going to go that route. I don't think you start a guy that you have to answer a question about his status every time you step in front of a microphone. Outside of that, I didn't think I think it was pretty obvious where they were with their first team. The second team, I think the second team is always a crapshoot, and it's always a lot of oars, and those are legitimate oars when you get to the second team. From the standpoint of there's not a clear defined two there, right? So like, David Sanders might slide to left tackle if need be, right? Wendell Moy could go to right guard if need be. In the secondary, McMurray could be a corner and Boo comes in, or there's just a lot of ways you can maneuver things around that it's not a clearly defined, this is this guy's backup type deal. But overall, no, nothing surprises me. I mean, I think when you look at surprises of camp, Weathersby being where he's at right now as a strong side defensive end is a credit to him being healthy and kind of where his commitment level is. I think Jordan Ross putting himself and definitely in the rotation at the Leo is a guy who's taken a real step from a maturity standpoint. Not that he was a bad egg, okay? And I think we get lost in that word maturity sometimes, that you say the guy was immature, then all of a sudden you think he's some kind of troublemaker. He's causing us. It wasn't that.
He was young and not playing.
Yeah, he was a 5-star who everything had gone well for him pretty much in high school. He comes in, he looks up, he's 4th on the depth chart. So he wasn't very mature about how he went about his business. It is a very normal thing to happen for a young, high-profile, highly talented player. But I think he's found his stride better to the point that he's going to be into that conversation. I am curious to see what they do with Jordan Burns at linebacker. Aren't you, Austin? Like,
yes.
How much does he play? Athletically, I think he fits all the bills, but mentally, is he far enough along? To me, he's clearly above those 2 freshmen or those 3 freshman linebackers right now. How much does he play? Is that a 3-man rotation at linebacker on a heavy rotation, or do they really go with 4 in a heavy rotation at linebacker?
Well, in a perfect world, the way if they blitz the linebackers more, like they did when Aaron Beasley was here, I think that Arion Carter is option 1. Option 2 from that thing is Jordan Burns for me. I think that's kind of where the staff sees it. I think that they would use him in that role to bring pressure because, as you said, Brent, athletically, he brings a lot to the table, and there's a lot of explosiveness there, and the kid can move. So, yeah, I am intrigued to kind of see how they play him, how much they play him, how much do they trust him, and, go from there.
Yeah, and
Fourth safety, you have Sidney Walton here, true freshman.
That's a surprise. I mean, that's a surprise right now for me. Now, I don't know that they're going to rotate in 4 safeties out of the gate, Austin. I mean, that might be a 3-man rotation at safety, and try to maybe get Walton some work more in week 2 to try to build some depth. Than it is him being in the rotation in Mercedes-Benz week 1 against an offense that a year ago threw it all over the lot on teams. So I'm not sure they go 4 deep in the rotation at safety in week 1.
I agree with that. I mean, I think week 1, you're going to play who you know, who you trust. Week 2, they'll give those kids a chance to earn more trust by proving you can play against a lesser opponent and have no busts. Don't bust. That's where those young kids are going to be judged, because athletically they'll be fine. It's more so the mental bust, being where you're supposed to be. You could technically make a play and get, graded poorly because you made a play because you were in the wrong spot.
Right.
You weren't supposed to be there. It just happened to be the ball was there and it worked out. So to me, that's where those young kids will earn more and more playing time. It's when they actually get an opportunity versus the UAB and ETSU or whoever, not having mental busts and proving that where to be each and every play.
All right, Rob Lewis, here's you've been dealing too long waiting for a game 1 to start, but here's an interesting deal. This officiating crew in this game is non-SEC, non-ACC. How many offensive pass interference penalties are you seeing Tennessee get called on a wide receiver screen where they block downfield because they're playing – this game is managed by an officiating crew that doesn't deal with it week in and week out with Josh Heupel's team in the SEC? And how much does that crew affect tempo in week one? Let's just throw it out there, Rob.
Man, that's an inside that's a Hubbard deep dive like nugget right there. That if there ever was one, non-SEC, non-ACC. The one good thing is that Josh Heupel will handle it in a calm and magnanimous manner. He'll be patient about it. It's like, look, guys, this is how we play. But that will be a big one. And the other one, the other over under. How many times are you going to hear SEC speed in this one? That's going to be. For me, I think you're going to hear that one a bunch. A lot
of SEC speed. The maddest Josh Heupel's ever been on the sideline was in the Orange Bowl with a non-SEC, non-ACC crew not spotting the ball quick enough. I mean, that's the only time he's gotten an unsportsmanlike penalty from the sideline. And I don't know what he said, but whatever he said at the 20-yard line to that official going into the end zone, that guy threw the flag about as high in the air as you'll see an official throw a flag, because whatever he said it was an immediate reaction of throwing that flag. It was not like, Coach, I've heard this for 4 plays. It was like, you can't say that. And
you can say a lot of things. That's not one of them.
Yeah, whatever it was, he could not say what he said. That's for sure, because it dropped the flag in a hurry.
His frustrations were justified, though. I mean, goodness gracious!
Oh, they couldn't mark the ball.
Yeah,
Holy smokes, it was so slow.
How big of a deal? One of the last talking points here, and Josh Heupel actually mentioned this in the Monday press conference. Rob, how big of a deal is it that this is going to be the first game on a big stage in front of a huge crowd, nationally televised for some of these freshmen, some of these transfers? This is going to be a big deal. It might seem minute, but you got to remember these are kids and humans like everybody else. How big of a deal is it to not go out there and be like, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff, getting caught in the moment?
I mean, I think it's a huge deal, but also it would be a much bigger deal if they were playing somebody besides Syracuse. I mean, I think this is a perfect opener for Tennessee. You go on a big stage, in a venue like this against an opponent. It's a name opponent from a power conference, but really, they're a paper tiger compared with what they were last year. I mean, I think it's a great chance for Tennessee's young kids to get their, feet wet in an environment like this, but against an opponent that, frankly, is I'll be surprised if it's as close as the spread.
And that's why the ETSU game in week 2 is huge before Georgia in week 3, right? Get running through the T, the Neyland Stadium experience, kind of know what to expect, so you're not just sitting there in amazement, in front of your biggest game so far when Georgia comes to town in week 3.
Well, coaches better enjoy that, because I think we're going to see with the new 9-game conference schedule moving forward, I think you're going to see some earlier in the season conference games as they try to fit 9 games into some teams that already have agreements with schools out there and things like that. I don't know that anybody's going to play a conference game in week 1, but you never know what that might look like. So I don't think you're going to have this slow ramp up into league play year in and year out like fans are used to seeing. I just don't think you're going to do that. I think some people are going to dive in to early conference games now that we're moving towards the 9-game conference schedule starting next year. So you better take advantage of it with your young players this year, because there are going to be some young guys into some hostile environments early, not just for Tennessee, but for some other teams around the conference next year.